The ship shook as it hit the atmosphere. Warning lights flashed red, and smoke filled the cabin. Eli grabbed the emergency handle and braced for impact. His small explorer pod spun out of control before slamming into the thick jungle below. Everything went black when Eli opened his eyes. The world was silent. He was alive. But his body hurt all over. The pod was broken, half buried in vines and alien mud. Strange sounds echoed through the trees, chirps, low howls, and something like breathing. He pulled himself out of the wreckage and looked around. The jungle was dense, glowing faintly in the dark with strange plants. He checked his communicator, but of course it was dead. No signal, no rescue. He muttered, "Perfect." Eli limped through the trees, searching for shelter before night fell. He found the remains of an old structure, almost hidden under moss and roots. It looked like a hut, but not human. The walls were made of bones and black stone. Inside, there were claw marks on the walls. Something had lived here, something big. He cleared a corner and sat down, his body aching. Just as his eyes began to close, he heard it, a low, deep growl. His eyes snapped open. The sound came again from outside the hut. Slow steps, then silence. Then another growl, louder this time, closer. Eli reached for a broken metal rod from his pod. He didn't breathe, didn't move. Something was just outside, watching him. Suddenly, a shadow jumped through the doorway. It was small, maybe the size of a child, but fast. Yellow eyes glowed in the dark, sharp claws extended. It landed on all fours and let out a beastly snarl. Eli held his ground. The creature circled him, its body low, muscles tight. It looked like a mix between a wildcat and a reptile, fur and file. Scales both covered its body, then for a moment, it paused. The creature's eyes locked with Eli's. He didn't lift the rod, didn't move. The creature bared its fangs again, but this time, its face changed. Its eyes widened just a little. And its cheeks turned pink. It blinked fast, confused, and suddenly turned away. With a soft snarl almost like a whisper, it jumped back into the shadows and disappeared into the jungle. Eli sat in stunned silence. A blush? Did that thing just blush? He whispered to himself. It didn't make sense. The next morning, he explored the nearby area carefully. No sign of the creature. But when he returned to the hut, something was there. A small chunk of meat, placed carefully on a leaf. No footprints, no sounds, just the meat, waiting. Eli didn't eat it, but he stared at it for a long time. "Are you watching me?" he asked the jungle. Nothing replied. That night, as darkness fell again, the jungle came alive with sounds. He built a small fire with broken pieces of the pod. Just as he finished, he heard rustling in the bushes. He turned slowly, and there she was again. The small creature stood on two legs now, more humanoid than before, still wild-looking. Claws ready, growling, but her eyes, those same yellow eyes, watched him carefully. She stepped closer, growling louder now, trying to look scary, but her legs shook slightly. Her chest rose and fell too fast. She was nervous, not angry. Eli stayed still and slowly reached for another chunk of meat from his pack. He placed it on the ground and pushed it toward her. She froze, eyes wide. The growling stopped. Then, for a second, she looked directly into his eyes again, her face flushed pink, blushing again before she snatched the meat and ran. No roar, no attack, just a blur of movement. Eli stared into the shadows for a long time. That was no beast. She was acting like one, but she wasn't. She was scared, pretending, hiding something. He whispered softly to the fire, "Who are you, little monster girl?" From deep in the trees, two yellow eyes glowed, watching him, and this time she didn't growl. Eli didn't sleep much that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he felt like someone was watching, not with hate or hunger, but with fear, curiosity, maybe even longing. The next morning, he walked outside the hut slowly. He scanned the jungle with careful eyes. Everything looked quiet, but he knew better. He could feel her. A breeze moved the trees. And in that moment, he saw something. Flash of movement, just beyond the large tree with purple moss, something small, then gone again. She's here. Eli said quietly. He smiled a little, still playing hide and seek. He pulled out a small piece of fruit from his supply bag and left it near the fire, then sat down and pretended not to care. Minutes passed, maybe an hour, bird-like. Creatures chirped above, and thick vines moved in the wind. But Eli didn't move, and finally, there she was, the same small alien girl, crouched low behind the bush, her eyes locked on the fruit. She didn't growl this time, she just watched, waiting. Eli didn't look directly at her. He kept speaking softly, as if she wasn't there. You know, you're not very good at hiding. Silence. I don't know your name, he said, still gazing at the fire. But I don't think you're a monster. He slowly pushed the fruit a little closer to the bush. I think you're just pretending. The girl flinched her body tense, but then, inch by inch, she moved forward. She stayed low, crawling like a beast, but her eyes looked afraid, not wild. She grabbed the fruit quickly and leaped back. But before disappearing, she paused again. Their eyes met, and once more. She blushed. A soft pink color rose on her cheeks. Eli didn't speak, didn't move. And then, like a ghost, she vanished into the jungle. That night, she didn't come. At least not that he could see. But in the morning, there was something strange outside the hut. A pile of cleaned berries, carefully placed in a bowl-shaped leaf. Next to it, a piece of soft moss like a cushion. Eli stared at it, shocked. This isn't a beast's mind, he whispered. This is kindness. He sat beside the gift and ate the berries one by one, then left a piece of chocolate from his rations. He knew she'd never had it before. He whispered into the trees, "This one's sweet, not scary." That night, Eli kept the fire low, just enough to see. He sat quietly, listening to the sounds of the jungle. Waiting, and then soft footsteps. She was here again. This time she stepped closer, not crawling. Her posture was still low, still cautious. But she stood on two legs now, like she wanted him to see she could. Eli didn't move. He saw her eyes fall on the chocolate. She sniffed it once, twice, then took a bite. Her eyes widened, and for the first time, she smiled. It was small, almost invisible, but it was there. A twitch of the lip, a flicker of something pure. See? Eli said gently. You're not a monster. She froze. The smile vanished, and she let out a low growl, a warning, but it wasn't the same. It didn't sound dangerous. It sounded embarrassed, confused, almost like a scared child trying to act tough. You don't have to scare me, Eli whispered. I'm not going anywhere. She looked at him for a long time then, in a movement that surprised them both. She sat down across from him, just beyond the firelight, still silent, still tense, but no growling, no hissing. Ayla slowly picked up a stick and began drawing in the dirt. A simple house, a small stick figure, a tree. She tilted her head, curious. He handed her the stick. Her hand trembled as she took it. She looked down at the dirt and began to draw beside his figure. Her lines were clumsy, unsure. But she drew something. It looked like a smaller version of herself. Then she drew something else. A bigger creature with sharp claws and sad eyes. Then flames, then nothing. She dropped the stick and backed away quickly, her breathing fast again, cheeks red. Before Eli could speak, she turned and vanished into the shadows. But she didn't growl, and she didn't take the chocolate. Eli stared at the drawing she left behind. What happened to you? He whispered. You were never a beast, were you? The jungle was quiet, but somewhere in the darkness, yellow eyes watched him, not with hate, but with something that looked very close to hope. The next morning, Eli woke up early. The drawing in the dirt was still there, only half washed by the night rain. He looked at the small creature she had drawn, the younger version of herself, and the fire. It wasn't just art. It was a message. Something had happened to her, something that turned her into what she was now. He stood and walked into the jungle, not too far, just enough to search, not to chase her, but to understand her. As he walked, he noticed strange signs, broken branches, claw marks, but also something else. Worn stone paths hidden under moss, footprints. Small ones, too clean, too deliberate to belong to a wild animal. He followed them carefully until he reached a cave. Its entrance was narrow, but tall enough for someone like her. He hesitated for a moment, then stepped inside. The air inside was warm and dry. The walls glowed slightly from glowing moss, and on those walls, drawings, dozens of them, scratched into the stone with claws or sticks. He moved closer. There were pictures of a tall alien tribe, huge beast-like creatures, then smaller figures like her, then fire, then cages. Eli's breath caught in his throat. They had trained her. They had locked her up. They had broken her mind to turn her into something she was not. One image showed a small figure, her being forced to fight. Another showed her kneeling while others stood tall around her. In one image, she was alone in a cage, eyes wide, arms crossed like a child. Eli stepped back, heart heavy. "No wonder you growl," he whispered. "It's the only language they gave you." A sound behind him. He turned quickly, and there she was, her eyes glowing, her body stiff. She had followed him. She saw him standing there, looking at her past, and now she was angry. She bared her teeth and growled louder than ever before. Claws out, back arched, like a wild animal ready to pounce. Eli didn't move. He didn't lift his hands. He just looked at her with sad eyes. "You're not scaring me," he said calmly. "You're just hurt." She paused. The growl shook in her throat. Her claws lowered just slightly. "No," she whispered, voice cracking like dry leaves. "I know," Eli said softly. "I saw what they did." Tears welled up in her eyes. She shook her head fast. "No, you can't see." She hit the wall, scraping away the drawings, clawing them in rage. "I'm not her anymore," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm the beast now." Eli walked closer, step by step. She didn't attack. She just stood there, trembling, her shoulders shaking, her face twisted with confusion and pain. "You only act like a monster," he said. "But I've seen the real you." She dropped to her knees. Tears fell silently, mixing with dust on the stone floor. Her claws curled into her palms. "I don't know who I am anymore," she whispered. "I was alone for so long. I forgot how to be anything else." Eli knelt beside her, careful not to touch. "You remembered how to blush," he said with a small smile. She looked away, cheeks turning pink again. "I didn't mean to," she said, embarrassed. "It just happened." "That's because you're still there," he said. "The real you. The one they tried to bury." Silence filled the cave. Only the soft sound of her breathing could be heard. Then slowly she looked at him. "Do you have a name?" she asked. "Eli," he answered. "And you?" She hesitated. "No one calls me anything now. They called me Subject 9. Eli shook his head. "That's not a name. That's a cage." She didn't respond, but after a long moment, she whispered, "Kivra." Eli smiled. "That's a strong name." Kivra looked down, then slowly stood up. She walked to the wall and placed her claw against one of the destroyed drawings. "I drew these to remember who I was," she said. "But every day I forgot a little more." Eli nodded. "Then let's make new ones." Kivra turned to him, confused. "What do you mean?" He picked up a stick and walked to the other side of the cave wall. He began drawing again, his small ship, the fire, the two of them sitting across it. Kivra stared at the drawing. Then slowly, her lips curled, another tiny smile. She stepped forward and added something of her own, a small hand reaching out to another, two claws gently touching a human hand. For the first time, the growl didn't return, only the quiet sound of breath. And healing, the monster mask had cracked, and behind it was someone who still wanted to be seen. Asterisk. That night, the fire burned gently outside the cave. Eli sat quietly, watching the flames dance. Beside him, Kivra sat with her arms around her knees. She wasn't growling anymore. She was just silent. The jungle made its usual sounds: clicks, chirps, rustling leaves, but around the fire, there was stillness, a moment of peace that felt new, almost unreal. Eli offered her a piece of dried fruit from his ration pack. Kivra took it carefully, sniffed it, then took a small bite. Her eyes lit up. "It's sweet," she whispered. Eli smiled. "You've probably never had anything like it." "No," she said. "Food was for fuel, not for taste." She stared into the fire for a while, her face thoughtful. Then, softly, she said, "They used to call me Kivra." Her voice cracked a little as she said it, as if it was wrong. Eli looked at her gently. "They told you it was a weakness, didn't they?" She nodded. "Names make you soft. That's what they said. They said a beast doesn't need a name." Eli leaned closer. "Then I guess they were wrong. You're not a beast, Kivra." She turned her face away quickly, but not before Eli saw the light pink return to her cheeks. "I forgot how it feels," she murmured, "to be called by that name." Eli didn't push her. He just let her sit there, quietly breathing in the warmth of the fire and the feeling of being remembered. Suddenly, a sound in the trees, quick footsteps. Then silence. Kivra jumped to her feet in one motion, her body alert. Eli stood too, gripping a branch from the firewood pile. "It's them," Kivra whispered. "Beast handlers." Eli's heart beat faster. "You're sure?" She nodded. "They come at night, to take back what escaped." Eli looked around. "Can we run?" She shook her head. "They know the paths. If we run, they'll follow." Her hands trembled slightly, claws half out, not because she wanted to fight, but because she was scared. She remembered the pain, the control, the shame. Eli stepped in front of her. "Then we don't run. We hide." Together, they put out the fire fast. Kivra led him into a narrow crack in the cave's back wall, a hidden path she had used once long ago. It led to a small cavern, tight and cold. They crouched there, side by side, barely breathing. Outside, heavy footsteps approached. Low voices spoke in a language Eli didn't know, but Kivra understood every word. "They're saying I'm broken," she whispered, "that I've failed the program." Eli looked at her in the dim light, her fists clenched, her jaw tight. "They think I'm weak now," she said, "because I blushed, because I smiled." She paused, then added, "Because I remembered my name." Eli placed a hand gently on her arm. "They're wrong. Your name is your strength." She looked at him confused. "But beasts don't have names." "Exactly," Eli said. "You're not a beast. You're Kivra." Suddenly, a sharp sound, a blade scraping stone. A voice shouted, and footsteps came toward the cave entrance. "They're close," Kivra hissed. "They'll find the drawings." Eli reached into his belt and pulled out a flare, his only one. He showed it to her. "We can blind them, just for a moment," he said, "but we'll have to run after that." Kivra nodded. Her eyes were sharp again, but different now, not angry, focused, determined. They crawled out of the crack slowly. The beast handlers were in the cave now. One was standing near the wall with the drawings. Another had found the burnt remains of the fire. Eli stood up behind a rock and triggered the flare. A burst of white light filled the cave like lightning. The beast handlers screamed, covering their eyes. Kivra grabbed Eli's hand. "This way," she shouted. They ran through the other exit, dodging roots and vines. Her grip was strong, but not clawed, not hurting him. For once, she wasn't dragging him like prey. She was pulling him like a partner. Side by side, they disappeared into the deep jungle, leaving the past behind. When they finally stopped to catch their breath, Eli turned to her. "You saved me," he said, smiling. Kivra looked away, cheeks pink again. "You saved me first," she whispered, "when you said my name." They sat on a large root under a glowing tree. Kivra looked up at the sky through the branches. "I don't want to be a beast anymore," she said softly. "I want to remember who I was." Eli nodded. "Then we'll remind the world who Kivra is." The name echoed in the night like a song long forgotten. A name once forbidden, now spoken freely, and never again hidden. The next few days passed quietly. Kivra and Eli stayed hidden in a different part of the jungle, far from the cave, far from the past. They built a small shelter between thick roots and glowing plants. It wasn't much, but it felt safe. Kivra laughed for the first time when Eli slipped in the mud. She quickly covered her mouth. Shocked by her own sound, Eli laughed too. "That's allowed now, you know. I've never laughed before," she admitted, looking down. "Then you're doing it perfectly," he said with a grin. Kivra spent more time standing upright now, less growling, more speaking. She even told him stories about her childhood before the training. Before the pain, she remembered a mother with kind eyes and a brother who gave her a carved wooden flower. "They said those memories were weak," she whispered, "but I kept them buried deep." Eli looked at her with warmth. "You didn't bury them," he said. "You protected them." But peace never lasted long on that jungle moon. Not for someone who had escaped, not for someone who had remembered their name. One morning, while Kivra was gathering berries, she froze. The air had changed. The jungle was too quiet. She dropped the basket and ran back to the shelter, but it was too late. Smoke was rising. Trees had been burned, and Eli was gone. Only his broken communicator lay in the mud, and beside it, clawed footprints, large and deep. "No," Kivra whispered, her heart pounding. "They found us." She followed the tracks quickly, silently. Her feet moved like instinct. But her heart was different now. She wasn't running as a beast. She was running as Kivra. The trail led to a clearing near a cliff's edge. Beast handlers stood in a circle, surrounding Eli. He was tied to a post, bruised but alive. One handler pointed at him with a long, sharp spear. "This one corrupted the subject," he said. "He must be eliminated." Kivra crouched in the shadows, growling low, not out of fear, but out of rage. The biggest handler stepped forward. Muscles like rocks, face scarred from many fights. "Bring her out," he commanded. Two others dragged someone forward. Her wrists were bound, her head down. But when she looked up, her eyes blazed yellow. "Kivra," Eli struggled against his ropes. "Don't touch her," he shouted. She didn't blink, didn't flinch. She stepped forward on her own. The leader growled, "So the little beast dares return. You were trained to obey, not run." Kivra's voice was calm. "I am not a beast. I am Kivra." The other handlers laughed. "Your name is gone," one barked. "Beasts don't get names." "I gave her a new one," Eli said. "She chose it." The leader slapped Eli across the face. Kivra growled, her hands trembling. The sound wasn't wild, it was controlled, cold, powerful. "I remembered who I am," she said. "And I don't belong to you anymore." The leader raised his hand. "Then die with your human." He stepped forward to strike Eli, but Kivra moved. Faster than anyone expected, she broke her bindings with sheer force, leapt forward, and slammed into the leader, claws slashing across his chest. The other handlers rushed in, but she fought like fire. Not like the beast they trained, like someone. Free one by one, they fell back, wounded, confused. They had built her into a weapon. But they never taught her what happens when the weapon chooses its own path. Eli, still tied, watched in awe. She didn't look like a monster now. She looked like a warrior, fierce, beautiful, free. Finally, only the leader remained, bleeding, panting, still holding the spear. "You will always be ours," he hissed. "You can't escape what you are." Kivra stood tall, her body bruised, her claws bloody, but her spirit unbroken. "I am not yours," she said. "I was never yours." With one final strike, she knocked the spear from his hand, then turned away. He lunged in desperation. But Eli, using a sharp rock he had loosened earlier, cut his ropes and grabbed a branch. He struck the leader down. Together, they stood over him. Two survivors, one human, one girl once called a beast, now standing free. The other handlers fled. Fear in their eyes, not of Kivra's claws, but of her. Will, her name, her strength, as the sun set behind the jungle. Eli touched Kivra's shoulder. "You saved me again," he said. She looked at him, her eyes soft. "You gave me a name," she replied. "That saved me first." And for the first time in her life, she smiled without fear, without hiding, without shame. The jungle was still burning behind them. Smoke curled into the sky. Ash fell like snow on the leaves. But Eli and Kivra didn't stop walking. They didn't speak. Their bodies were tired, scratched, bruised, but their hearts were steady. They had survived for now. Hours passed, and the sun disappeared behind the thick clouds. Darkness took over, and the jungle's noises returned: buzzing insects, distant howls, heavy branches shifting in the wind. They stopped near a small stream. Eli dropped to his knees, splashing water on his face. Kivra sat silently beside him, her yellow eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "You should rest," Eli said. "Breathe in hard." Kivra shook her head. "I don't sleep much," she whispered. Not since the cages. Eli didn't push her. He knew she was still healing inside and out. A moment passed. Then Kivra looked up at the stars above. "Eli," she said softly, "they won't stop." He looked at her. "Who?" "The Beast Tribe," she answered. "They'll keep coming until I'm captured." "Or dead," Eli frowned. "There has to be somewhere safe." She nodded slowly. "There is. There's an old outpost, built long ago before I was taken. It was hidden, buried beneath the stone mountains." Eli stood, brushing the dirt off his pants. "Then we go there." Kivra hesitated. "There's one problem," she said. "To reach it, we have to pass through the Howling Pass." Eli raised an eyebrow. "Why do they call it that?" "Because of what lives there," Kivra said quietly. "And because most who enter don't return." Despite the danger, they set out before dawn. Kivra moved ahead, guiding him through thick vines, over moss-covered rocks. She moved fast, quiet, confident, no longer hiding in shadows. She was free now, and it showed. The land began to change. The trees grew thinner, and the ground turned into dry stone. Sharp cliffs rose on both sides, creating a long, narrow path between them. "This is it," Kivra said. "Howling Pass." Eli looked around. The place was strange. No wind, no birds, no sound, only the crunch of their footsteps. Then a low echo, a howl, far away, but rising. Eli froze. "That's not the wind," he said. "No," Kivra replied. "That's them." From the shadows ahead, figures emerged. Not beast handlers, something else, four-legged, skin stretched tight over bones, eyes white and empty. "Night crawlers," Kivra said. "They feed on fear." Eli tightened his grip on the metal rod he carried, but Kivra raised a hand. "Don't fight them with strength," she whispered. "They follow sound. We move without a word." They stepped forward carefully, one foot at a time, slowly, slowly. The creatures sniffed the air, heads twitching. One of them turned toward Eli, its tongue flicking the ground like a snake. Kivra reached out and gently took his hand. Her touch was steady, not like before when her claws trembled. Now she was guiding him not as a beast, but as someone who had once been lost, and now found purpose. Together, they walked silently past the creatures, breathing slow, hearts pounding. Eli's palm was sweating, but Kivra's grip never loosened. A stone slipped from under Eli's boot. Clack! The sound echoed through the pass like thunder. Every crawler snapped its head toward them, white eyes wide, mouths opening to show too many teeth. "Run," Kivra whispered, and they did. They ran as fast as they could down the narrow path. Claws scraped behind them, howls filled the air, but they didn't stop. Eli stumbled once. Kivra grabbed his arm, pulling him up. A crawler lunged at her. She spun mid-run and slammed it with her shoulder. It crashed into the rocks with a screech. They reached the edge of the pass just as the path opened into a rocky valley. Kivra grabbed Eli and ducked behind a ledge. The crawlers reached the edge, but did not follow. They hissed, clawed the ground, and then slowly backed away, disappearing into the shadows again. Silence returned. Eli was breathing hard, chest rising and falling fast. Kivra sat beside him, staring back at the darkness they'd escaped. I thought you said they don't follow, Eli said between breaths. They usually don't, she replied, but you made a very loud mistake. He gave a weak laugh. Sorry. Kivra didn't laugh, but she smirked a little. You're lucky I was there. I know, he said. I always am. They stood together and walked to the far end of the valley. And there, built into the stone wall, covered in vines and old tech, the entrance to the outpost. Kivra placed her hand on the scanner. It flickered, scanned her clawed fingers, then clicked open with a long rusty hiss. Inside, it was dark but safe. Old lights flickered on as they entered. It smelled like dust and metal, but to them, it smelled like hope. Eli sat down on a broken bench and looked around. So this is it? Kivra nodded. Our new beginning, and for a long time they sat there, silent, safe, together. The old outpost became their new shelter, not perfect, but safe. Kivra repaired the power system slowly, remembering pieces of old tech from before her training. Eli helped wherever he could, often making mistakes, but always trying. In time they turned the cold, broken base into something warm. One room lit up fully. The kitchen was cleaned, and soft mats were laid on the floor. They had light, food, and each other. But peace never stayed forever. One morning, a warning alarm blared. Red lights flashed above the metal doors. Kivra rushed to the console, claws flying over the keys. She stared at the screen with wide eyes. They found us, she said. Beast Tribe. 3 ships landing nearby. Eli stepped beside her. We can escape, he said quickly. We'll find another place. No, Kivra said, her voice steady. I'm done running. He looked at her, surprised. Her eyes were calm. Her back straight. This wasn't the frightened girl in the jungle. This was someone who had become whole. Eli nodded. Then I'm standing with you. They set traps across the outer paths. They prepared old defense systems, weak but still functional. Kivra sharpened her claws while Eli rigged a shock wire to the door. As they worked, he watched her, her movements smooth, focused, fearless. You're not the same girl I met, he said. She paused, looked at him. Good, she replied. I don't want to be the caged beast anymore. She looked at him softly. You showed me I didn't have to. Hours later, they heard the heavy steps of the beast handlers approaching. Metal boots, deep growls, loud orders. The traps worked. 2 guards fell into spike pits. Another was shocked unconscious. But more kept coming. Kivra stood at the main entrance, her claws out, her heart steady. Eli beside her with a metal rod in hand. The tribe's leader stepped forward. A new one, larger, more brutal looking. He pointed at Kivra. You left the program, he said coldly. You turned soft. Kivra didn't flinch. I remembered my name, she said. I remembered who I was, the leader growled. We will reset you. Erase the human filth from your mind. No, she whispered, then louder, stronger. No. She leapt forward with a roar, but not the kind of roar they trained her to use. This one was hers. It came from her soul, a sound of pain, rage, freedom, and strength. A roar that shook the walls, echoed through the jungle. The beast handlers froze. Some stepped back. For the first time they were afraid. Eli ran beside her, swinging the metal rod. They fought together, 2 against many, but it wasn't numbers that mattered now. It was will. Kivra moved like lightning, claws slashing, jumping from ledge to ledge. She knocked one enemy down with her bare hands, another with a kick that sent him flying into the wall. Eli fought too, not as strong, but brave. When one handler cornered him, Kivra jumped in front. She blocked the blow and snarled. Touch him again, and you'll lose your face. One by one, the tribe fell. Some fled, others lay broken. The leader remained, breathing hard, blood on his armor. He stared at Kivra, eyes filled with hate. You were our best creation, he spat. And now you're our biggest shame. She walked toward him slowly. I'm not your creation, she said. I'm Kivra. He lifted his weapon and charged, but she was faster. She dodged left, twisted behind him. and slammed into the ground. He growled up at her. End me then. She paused, breathing hard, claws raised, then lowered her hand. No, she whispered. You don't get to choose how this ends. She turned her back to him. Eli was watching from the side, bruised but smiling. Kivra walked to him slowly. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world fell quiet. You're bleeding, she said softly, touching his shoulder. So are you. He smiled. She looked down. Blood ran down her arm, cuts on her side, but she didn't care, not now. Not with him standing beside her. You didn't leave me. She said, you never left. He took her hand. I never will. Her cheeks turned pink again, that same soft blush from the first night, the one that had started it all. She lowered her head quickly. Shy again for just a second. I still blush, she whispered, embarrassed. Eli laughed gently. It's my favorite part about you. Kivra rolled her eyes. But her smile stayed, not the fake smile, not the trained one, but real, raw, soft. And free. They stood there under the red sky, surrounded by fallen enemies and burning trees, and yet, for the first time, it felt like home. She had roared to defend her life. She had remembered her name. She had blushed when a human gave her something no one else ever had, a choice, and in that moment, the beast was finally gone.